Hi everyone, it's Rabbi Dr. Jack Cohen. I hope everyone is doing well out there with the Dating Shalom Bayis series. Before I start today's wonderful presentation, a great story which highlights how a woman finally was able to break away from the influence of her parents, which was misguiding her and preventing her from getting married. I'd just like to inform everyone that if you need my help in any way in dating or shidduchim, anywhere in the world to get matched up, to have a copy of the PDF of questions to ask on dating, to get a evaluation of the current relationship that you're in, it's all work that I love and I enjoy tremendously. If you have any Shalom Bayit issues or you need help in any capacity in that direction, please feel free to reach out to me from anywhere in the world. My cell phone number is 305-206-1916. Again, 305-206-1916, or alternatively, you can write me an email to drjackcohen18@gmail.com, or simply reach out to me at my website at drjackdating.com. I'd be happy to help you. I'd like to share a fascinating story with you about an individual, a woman specifically, who grew up with parents who had a very regimented idea of what they wanted for her and how she needed to break away from that in order to be able to get married. And the title of today's presentation is How I Stopped Dating for My Parents and Started Dating for Myself. My parents emigrated to Toronto in Canada after the war and had 4 children who they treasured, 3 boys and myself, the youngest child and only girl in the family. My proud European Heimish parents were very traditional and had strong beliefs about how we should conduct ourselves, from how much value to place on education and how to dress to what type of person we should marry. So they were influencing our lives and very involved in our decisions. My proud European parents always have been very involved in our life. I was always very much under the influence of my parents, who I loved and revered. Both of my parents spoke many languages. They were well-educated, sophisticated people who were respected in the community. My father was a brilliant Talmud Chacham, a Torah scholar, who worked for the government and learned every moment Torah that he could. My mother, in addition to keeping a beautiful, immaculate home, was a charismatic school principal adored by all who knew her. When I turned 19 years old, I turned to my parents for guidance in shidduchim, and they made their expectations very clear to me. Muhammad, they said to me, you were to start and find a smart, handsome boy from a fine Heimish family similar to ours, who was a college-educated professional and also a top-notch learner and Talmud Chacham. So they wanted it all. Only the best guys for our Ruchama, they would say, truly wanting the best for me. I was a well-liked, pretty girl who excelled in school and earned top grades. I always strived to attain perfection to make my parents proud. When it came to shidduchim, I knew they wanted the very best for me, and I trusted them implicitly. After all, they had helped my brothers find their wives. Their wives are wonderful women who tick every box. With the long, tough list of criteria my parents laid out for me, it was not surprising that finding suitable boys to date was not a walk in the park. I dated extremely infrequently, maybe once or twice a year if I was lucky. When my parents did agree to a suggestion, after weeks or months of careful research, I felt tremendous pressure. Before each date, my mom would give me a once-over and fix any hair out of place. I was expected to give my parents a play-by-play of how every date went. With the very best of intentions, they would analyze our conversations, in particular what I said or did not say, and coach me on how to approach the next date with the boy. In retrospect, it's not surprising that most of the boys that I went out with rejected me. Because of parental pressure, I was so uncomfortable and in my head on each date that we both were left feeling very little connection. And though I was extremely well put together and dressed beautifully, as my parents bought me the best clothing, designer names and all, I wasn't attracting the boys I dated because I was too closed off and intellectual rather than vulnerable and emotionally open. If I could not connect to them because I couldn't open up myself and create a portal into my soul. I was too intellectual and far too closeted. The truth is, the boys did not feel a connection because I wasn't letting them get to know me. It wasn't until I was older that I realized they couldn't get to know me because I didn't have my own sense of identity. I was dating for my parents, and it wasn't working for me. I wasn't dating for myself. I wasn't letting my identity come out. After earning several university degrees, I followed in my father's footsteps, and I got a great job working for the government. I excelled at work just as I had in school, and I had a wonderful group of friends. But through my 20s, my dating life continued on the same horrific, unsuccessful path. The older I got, the narrower my dating pool became. My dates were few and far between. We know how it goes. When you start in the shidduchim time, it's quite good. The selection is fantastic, but as you get older, it narrows out. Though I tried to stay positive and pump myself up before a date, it was hard to squash my nerves. I came home feeling drained and discouraged. As I approached 30 years old, I felt a deep lack in my life. More than anything, I wanted to get married and start a family of my own. I recognized that if I wanted to find my soulmate, I needed to make a change in my life by becoming more emotionally independent and creating some distance from my parents. When a government job opportunity came up in Montreal, I grabbed it. Moving to a new city gave me the courage to take another important step. I needed to set clear boundaries with my parents. I had to start taking control of my own personal life. Every time my parents called, and they called often, they inquired about my advancements in dating. Ma, Tati, I'm not discussing my dating life with you anymore, I would tell them, as I replied to them once over the phone. It caused tension between us, but I knew I had to cut them off out of my shidduchim completely so I could start thinking for myself and being my own person. Moving to Montreal, my real journey in dating began. After years of going out maybe once a year, I started dating more frequently. I adjusted my parents' rigid criteria, which they had set for me, and I started dating different types of men. Not long after my 32nd birthday, I dated a man 6 times, and I really liked him. But he ended it suddenly and unexpectedly. Although he liked me, he apparently didn't feel the deep connection he needed to move forward. To me, it was a crushing blow. Not long after that, I dated another man for several months. He was 39 and fit all the criteria on paper, but it soon became clear he was a commitment phobe, and we broke it off. Another painful blow. Over the next few years, I continued actively pushing myself and putting myself out there and expanding my dating pool to include men who didn't come from Hamish backgrounds like myself, men who were not professionals, older men, divorcees. Being more open-minded to different men definitely meant I dated more frequently, but I still didn't feel the connection that I was searching for. After years of struggling to find my soulmate, when I was in my mid-30s, I reached out to a dating mentor in my community known for helping singles by empowering them to figure out why they're struggling. After many conversations with him, he helped me understand how I came across on my dates. Though I no longer reported to my parents, I took a very intellectual approach to dating. Rather than letting my guard down and being myself, I came across more like a professor, speaking about politics, interests, philosophical ideas. These are the kind of subjects that don't create a connection to the man. I recently had I had a young woman that I was mentoring and dating, and she was the same type. She was raised in the home, and I think the parents maybe did a disservice to her by not letting her go to schools, and rather they raised her and educated her in the house. And she describes the BDS movement as the boycott, divestiture, sanctions movement. That's how she speaks, like a professor. So, sometimes if you're not letting go and allowing your real true essence to come across in your personality, it could be stifling. While the men I was dating found me attractive, appreciated me as a conversationalist, and respected my intelligence, they weren't getting to see my softer side, my silliness, or my emotional vulnerability. This is something that I see quite often with my clients. Some of them are rigid, and they can sometimes be a little bit uncomfortable. You've got to let yourself go. You got to express your silliness. You got to express your funny side. Reflecting on how I approached dating and carried myself, it began to make sense why men said I was a great girl, but they just didn't feel connection with me. I was like a textbook. Finally, I understood that to meet my soulmate, I had to develop a soul connection, and that could only happen if I was vulnerable, if I would expose myself. With this insight, I continued dating. I further expanded my dating criteria, dating shorter guys, overweight guys, even a man who was deaf. Anyone who said yes to me and who was emotionally healthy was worth a cup of coffee to me. When I was 38, a certain man came up a number of times, Mordechai. Mordechai was 47 years old, had been widowed about a year earlier, and had 5 children. A friend of mine was Mordechai's second cousin, and she raved about Mordechai. She said he's a wonderful, devoted father, a Talmud Chacham, a Torah scholar, a smart, independent man. He's a gem. He sounded terrific, but I wasn't sure how I felt about marrying a man with such an established family of his own. After all, he had 5 children. Over the next month or so, I had a few awful dates. So when my friend called again to suggest Mordechai, the gem, I figured, why not? Let me try. What do I have to lose? When I met Mordechai, I instantly felt at ease with him. Our conversation flowed easily. A few dates in, Mordechai shared what he liked about me. He liked my spirit. He liked my spunk. He said he loved my laugh, and he appreciated my easygoing nature. I couldn't believe it. He didn't comment on my IQ, my vocabulary, or the fact that I love to read the Wall Street Journal. He really saw me for who I was, the real me, on a deeper level. After a few months of dating, Mordechai asked me to meet his children. Surprisingly, though I had been nervous, it went extremely well. The following week, he asked to meet my parents. I'll admit, I had palpitations. My parents had never been easy people to impress. Incredibly, my parents, who had always wanted the very best for me and were critical of my shidduch prospects, had nothing but words of praise for Mordechai. They knew he was a wonderful man who would be a great partner, just as he was a devoted father. we got engaged, and the rest is history. We just celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary. So what are the lessons for my life? I'd like to share those lessons with you right now. It's important, ladies and gentlemen, that we hear from her and we hear what she has to say. Number 1, when it's time, it will come. I dated for almost 2 decades, Ruchama writes, so I understand the pain older singles face, wondering when their turn will come. My experience taught me that when Hashem decides it's time for your beshert to arrive, it will come. Sometimes older singles have to achieve their own personal growth, and others simply have to wait for their soulmate to be ready. For some, their soulmate isn't religious yet. For others, he or she may be currently married to someone else, or have to heal from some personal trauma to be truly marriage ready. Number 2, second lesson that I learned, don't date for your parents, date for yourself. I spent many years under the influence of my parents in shidduchim, and it was suffocating. Though I know they wanted the best for me, their impossible missed the right criteria, and constant scrutiny negatively impacted me. The pressure I felt from them made it challenging me to relax and be myself on dates. Whether you have parents who are impossible to please or offer constructive criticism after requesting a play-by-play of your dates, it may be time to set some boundaries. When I set firm boundaries with my parents, I was able to decide for myself what my true non-negotiables were in a partner and broaden my dating pool. Instead of feeling nervous on dates, questioning whether I was saying or doing the right thing, I was able to let go and be myself. And that's critical to success in dating, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to be able to let go and be yourself. Number 3 lesson, don't date with your head, show your heart. Just because you're an intelligent, intellectual person, that doesn't mean you should treat dating like an intellectual exercise. Dating isn't about idea sharing, it's about getting to know a person's essence and allowing that person to see your essence so you can both decide if there's a connection between both of you. For years, I was a great conversationalist on dates and demonstrated my IQ and intelligence, but I never really scratched the surface of who I was emotionally, and that made it difficult for the men that I was dating to feel a connection and create a connection with me. With the help of my dating mentor, I was also able to learn to get out of my head, stop doubting myself, and be present and vulnerable on dates. Stop worrying about the future. Stop trying to impress your parents or others. It was music to my ears when Mordechai said he liked my spirit, he liked my spunk. I knew finally that I had been able to show who I was on a deeper level. Not only did he see me, but he loved what he saw. Lesson number 4 that I learned, find a dating mentor. I reached a point in my 30s when I wanted to get married so badly and realized something was holding me back. I sought advice and mentorship as part of a self-discovery process. The rabbi who served as my mentor helped me gain insight about myself that really transformed the way I dated. By being open to his constructive criticism, I was to open myself up in the shidduchim in a way that I never did in the past. I strongly recommend that singles find a mentor outside their family, as they often have greater objectivity. Also, stick to one mentor. Don't ask too many people different questions. Too many cooks in the pot spoils the broth. Too many mentors will give conflicting advice, which can be incredibly confusing. So that's a wonderful presentation, ladies and gentlemen, we made today. How important it is to learn from this woman's life and the lessons that she gave us, so that you can, if you're older, you can get going and get successful. If you need my help in any way in dating, shidduchim, and getting matched up, you need help in getting trained in dating, we can do dry runs together. Whatever it is, from anywhere in the world, you need help in Shalom Bayis, feel free to reach out to me. WhatsApp preferred, a message at first, and then I can show you how to get an appointment with me. 305-206-1916 is my cell phone. drjackdating.com, you can write me an email. I'd love to help you. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.